Welcome to the February the 4th, 1997 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie, as we bring you the history of our city and interview some of the people that have been very important to the very historic happenings within our city. This is our history tape number 297, and this is a first on our history show. We're having a very special memorial salute to celebrate the beginning of Black History Month on our show for this 1997, saluting a young man that meant so very much to our city, King David Daniels. And we have with us on the dais today two wonderful people. First of all, Dr. Thelma Daniels, his wonderful, wonderful wife, and we want to welcome you to the set today.
Thank you so much.
So glad to have you with us.
Good to be here.
And it's been since 1994 since we had a set two on this dais. And Mr. Prairie Pruitt, godson of King David, and we're so glad to have you back with us today.
Thank you so much, Ruthie.
Yes. All right. To begin with, I needed to show our viewing audience a beautiful, in loving memory of King David Daniels, and this was on December the 23rd that we had all sorts of eulogies to David. Also, there were some of the most glorious singing for his funeral services at the St. John Baptist Church. And I told Thelma a few minutes ago that if he had not been named King David, he would have probably been delighted to be St. John, because he loved the St. John Baptist Church in such a wonderful way. And we thought this would be a wonderful way to really look back on David's life and talk a little bit about some of the things, how very important he was to the city of Grand Prairie, Texas, to his community of Dalworth, and to all of the boys and girls. He touched so many lives, not only in the Dalworth community, but all over this city. And since David was so very important during the days when Thelma did not know him, and probably even before Prairie was born, I'd like to say that he was very, very instrumental in some wonderful happenings in Grand Prairie. He was a peacemaker, he was a happy man, and he was a dapper dresser. He was so splendid when the urban renewal came to the city of Grand Prairie, and the city, with a grant from the United States government, was able to clean up and put the infrastructure into the Dalworth community. And David caused a lot of that to happen very peaceably and decently and in order. And also, I'm going to let Prairie tell about some more of the things that happened that he has a lot of influence as far as history is concerned on documenting David Daniels' football career, principalship, and etc. And then we're coming back to Thelma and let her tell about some of the remaining things and how important he was in her life. Going through all of the things that David did, school-wise and otherwise, and ending segregation, he was the most important key that we had in our city when that came about. And so let's begin with Prairie Pruitt. I know that David is shining and looking down on us today as we do this interview, and so he'll probably give you a little help about what to say and all of this, but we'd like you to document on this memorial what he meant to you and what he's meant to your family and some of the other boys and girls about your age.
Well, you know, Ruth, it's very difficult to put into words what Prof meant to me and my family. I truly can say that I probably wouldn't be sitting here if it was not for him. The guidance that he gave, the wisdom that he passed on. He was a man of integrity. And above all that he gave, he always gave integrity to whatever he was involved in and to whomever he was involved with. His influence stretches so far. I mean, he was involved in every facet of service. He was probably, without a doubt in my mind, the most selfless person that I've ever met. He taught me through years of watching and observing how to give service to others. And I think that's a lost art now. He taught me the art of compromise, how I was to have an opinion, but I was never to be so opinionated that it caused strife. And these are lost arts now. We could use David Daniels right now, that spirit, in Congress, in the White House. You know, Atlanta and the country had Dr. King, but I can truly say that I'm blessed to have had David Daniels as my mentor. He taught me through his participation in Boy Scouts. I don't know, very few might know, but David was the recipient of the Silver Beaver Award.
Way to go.
Which is the highest award
Yes.
obtainable in the Boy Scout world.
Yes.
He was also very, very instrumental and active in the Alpha Phi Alpha married group.
Yes.
I was a pre-promised alpha man before I was 12 years old.
Yes.
He taught me what the alpha was, gave me a little plaque and said, hey, you're going to be an alpha man. And anyone that knows about these organizations know that their basic roots and principles are the things that are, number one, based on biblical truths, and they're based on integrity, and they're the very fiber which made this country what it is.
Where did you first meet David Daniels along your lifetime? Now, about what age person were you when you first came in contact with David and saw him in awe for the very first time?
In the first grade.
In the first grade?
Well, probably, more accurately, he met me when I was born. I'm probably one of the few people that will admit to it, but I was actually born in Grand Prairie. I mean, in those days, the blacks were not allowed to be born around here except in Parkland Hospital or by a midwife.
Yes.
And my mother was on the way to Parkland, and I didn't quite make it.
I see.
So Dr. Cupp, whom some might remember,
Yes,
now, I'm getting real deep here, Grand Prairie deep.
That's good.
But Dr. Cupp delivered me down by his office because that's where my mother's automobile happened to stop because she couldn't go any further. And Dr.
Yes.
Cupp came out of his office and delivered me right here in Grand Prairie.
You were on the move to start with.
Yes, and at that time, the driver of the car was Reverend Willie Roberts.
All right.
And when we got back, so I'm told, with gifts, food, clothing, and the things that we needed to survive, was David Daniels.
He was there right after you were born.
That's exactly right. So I guess he knew me hours after I was here, and my first recollection of him was this big, booming, and to me at that time, tall man.
Yes.
When I was in the first grade.
Yes.
Was
he your teacher?
He was my principal.
Your principal, okay.
Well, he was a legend.
And who was your first grade teacher?
My first grade teacher, I met her, she was still alive. She was at the funeral, Miss Simmons.
All right.
Miss Bernice Simmons.
All right.
Yeah, Miss Bernice Simmons. And she was the first grade teacher. The first lady I ever remember disciplined me with a ruler. A little lady, but she taught me respect. And that respect was demanded of all of us, teachers, janitors, coaches, the whole Dalworth family, by David Daniels. There was no mistake who the boss was.
Did you ever have him as an instructor, either in school or in athletics?
Well, when I came along, he was pretty much in the CEO mode. He had gotten Dalworth to a place of respectability, and we had coaches and we had debate coaches, and he had a faculty that he actually instructed and guided. And basically, he was the director of the whole program in Dalworth.
How do you think he got along with his teachers and his coaches?
Well,
You think he was in charge?
there's no doubt about it, but he didn't rule out of fear. It was love and respect, because a lot of the teachers and instructors that were at Dalworth, and I'm sure they'll tell you the same thing, they were sort of cast-offs out of the dollar system. There weren't that many jobs for black instructors, and Mr. Daniels gave them their first start on their careers as teachers and instructors. So it was that love that demanded the respect that he got.
Well, he had some winning football teams. How involved was he in that? And you were a product of one of those.
Well, Coach Randolph Reed was the head coach, assisted by Adolph Jackson, Reggie Brown, Boston Grant, Avery Miller. But it was no doubt who set the rules for what was going to occur. And what was going to happen was books first, athletics second. Actually, it was respect, family, church first, academics second, and athletics third. Mm-hmm. And that was the order of things at Dalworth. You didn't play long before they had this no play, no pass rule. Mm-hmm. That was always at Dalworth. You did not participate if you couldn't get your books. And if you did not attend school, you would hear this big voice at your door. I know you're in there. Boom, boom, boom. Come on out. You got time to make second period. It wasn't an assistant coach. It wasn't one of the other teachers. It wasn't a subordinate. It was the man.
I understand that he was very philanthropic in that he provided food and clothing for many, many boys and girls at Dalworth.
Well, you asked me earlier about what he meant to me and my family. And there were times, and I'm sure there have been times in many families during the early beginnings of the Dalworth community, of which my family is part of that legacy, where there was a need for assistance just to survive. And Mr. Daniels was always there, whether it was to assist us in getting a birth certificate or to assist us in getting Social Security, or whatever the need might have been. In those days, there wasn't the police or the law enforcing child care or taking care of those that have been left by their fathers. But it didn't matter to Mr. Daniels when he saw a child that was not getting the proper food, clothing, etc. in his own way, whether he had to send someone to do it or do it himself, he made sure that need was met.
That's wonderful. We're going to get back with you in a few minutes, but we need to talk with Dr. Thelma Daniels. Yes. And we're just so glad you're with us today. And we'd like for the viewing audience to get to know a little bit more about you and how did you meet King David?
I met King David Daniels when I was a late teenager. It happened that his first wife, Lee Alice, had a sister whom my older brother married.
How wonderful.
A few years after Lee Alice and David were married. So we grew up in that kind of context as a kind of extended family.
Yes.
And of course, if I could form a geometric figure to represent David's life, since he's no longer with us physically, though we know he will always be with us spiritually. He's here right now. I think each of us can feel his presence. But this geometric figure would have to be a circle. We know that the circle philosophically represents perfection. And in the center of that circle, I will put the family because of David's attitude and concept of the family. He believed in the Christian nurturing love kind of concept. And he often told me when I would ask him, how did he get to be the kind of caring, loving person that he was? I said, you and Lee Alice were married for 42 years. Why do you want to get married again? You know, he said, well, because I believe in the family. I believe in the nurturing quality of love. And because of the closeness and support that he gave to his mother after his father died when David was only 14, he had to grow up very fast.
Yes.
And being the oldest brother in the family, he had to help his mother support the family. So there was never any doubt in my mind, even when I was teasing him the 2 years before we got married, about his commitment to the family.
Yes.
And of course, the church would comprise another one of those areas in the circle. And I think one of the happiest moments of David's life occurred in 1995 when he chaired the service during which St. John Baptist Church burned its mortgage. The minister, Reverend Davis, asked David to plan that service.
Oh, wow.
And he had a silver urn in which the trustees and the deacons came around to burn pieces of the mortgage. So that was really a happy time for him. And then, of course, the school would have to become a part of those concentric circles.
And that magic date of the school dedication was December the 11th?
That's right.
1994.
That's
oh,
right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that exciting for him?
Oh, it was so exciting for him. He kept running. Did you know that his house is just about a block from the school? And he kept running back and forth to the school. I said, honey, you don't need to keep running up there. Perry and the other planners of the program have everything in order. He said, no, but I just have to see what's going on. So he ran back and forth several years. That was his school, and he felt like it and acted like it too. But he was driving that one block. He wasn't walking that one.
He was
driving. So during his penultimate drive to the school, he said, next time I come back, I will come back to pick you up so we can go, for the celebration. That was really a grand and glorious occasion for us to see Dalworth Elementary School's name changed to the David Daniels Elementary School. And in addition to that, the little street was named Daniels Boulevard also. Yes. So we have those physical mementos which will stand carrying David's name. And of course, the Grand Prairie community is certainly an integral part of this circle that I was talking about, which I think represents David's life very, very adequately. And there was not one single activity, or board, or committee that David was invited to serve on in Grand Prairie, so long as he believed that that service would eventuate in improving the quality of life
yes.
of the people for whom that particular service was being rendered. And that was his life, and those 4 different aspects of the circle, which I had mentioned. Of course, he was, the first census is African American History Month in terms of first he was a principal. Before he was principal of Dalworth, he said Dalworth was just a one-teacher school, and he was not only this one teacher, principal, teacher, bus driver, fire maker in the wintertime, and the cook.
And the janitor.
And the janitor.
Yes.
So all of those rolled up into one. So all in all, he's a very remarkable person, I think. And
Bishop.
Yes.
well, that's a part of the educational. That's a part of the That's a part of the whole educational complex. And he would give every year at least $1,000 as scholarship for some worthy student at Bishop, depending upon the academic average. Laura Price, who is a Grand Prairie girl, was a recipient of that $1,000 for all the 4 years that she was in college. So yes, he loved his alma mater, and Bishop gave him special recognition and a special citation and placed him in the Bishop College Hall of Fame the year that he retired from the public schools here. And ironically, interestingly, or coincidentally, because Lee Alice was still living, they were seated at the head table with the other guests. I was the presiding mistress of ceremony.
How wonderful.
So, but nobody even envisioned the
yes.
changes that would take place in people's lives.
Yes.
But David was the love of my life, and he will always be.
All right.
I think he will be with me.
I just know that, and I would like for you to look out into your camera and let everyone know what you have been doing with your life since you lost David. What do you do each day? And tell them where you've been working this morning and all of the good things that you still continue to do in his name.
Well, I still retain my part-time teaching job at El Centro College in downtown Dallas. I enjoy my work. When I visited my physician, because at first my physician thought I was under such stress because of prolonged time of David's illness, and I would go to the hospital or the healthcare center, wherever he was, every day.
Yes.
At first, I would stay 7 to 8 hours a day. And people would ask me, aren't you tired? But even now, I said, no, when I think about it, I never felt tired. I felt sad that I could not help him anymore, and I still feel that sadness, but I still go to David's grave every day.
Yes.
And when I leave here, that's where I shall go. And I am inspired by that visit. I still have that empty feeling, that sadness, but I'm still inspired by it. My daughter asks me often, Mama, do you still feel David's presence? I said, yes, I do. Wherever I am, he's there. And I think that's the way my life will always be. He's a kind of protective guardian angel for me, and I accept it as that. So I don't feel tired at all.
It's so wonderful that you still have your work, and let us know what you do.
I teach English composition at El Centro College in Dallas, Texas.
Are you going to write a book?
I would like to write David's life story. So maybe one of these days, before too long, I'll get started with that. I would like to interweave it with the story of Dalworth community.
Yes. Now, you may come back now. We just had to hear a full impact from Miss Thelma.
Oh, no doubt about it. I'd like to look in a camera somewhere and just say quite frankly to the city of Grand Prairie, to the mayor, and to the establishment, I would like to see this city take Davis Daniels' residence with respect to Miss Thelma, giving her permission, and make it a memorial to this city as a standard for this community, not just black, but to this community, and preserve it just as we have some other houses in the city for some respected citizens, and keep it and preserve it for the duration. That's a standard that is needed for the Dalworth community so that we never lose that David Daniels spirit. And I think it would make us all better citizens and a better place to live.
Well, now, Prairie, that gives you and I a job. We need to hustle enough money to buy this house from his granddaughter so that we can make that into the first African-American or Black history house that we have. I don't know that we have any in any of the outlying areas. I know they have one in Dallas, but we'll have to accept that as a challenge. Don't you think that's a good job for us to undertake for Black History Month in 1997?
I'd like to encourage Mayor Charles England and the other council members that I know very well to take that task upon themselves just with the same vigor. We need this just as much for our spiritual uplifting as we do the racetrack and other things that benefits this city.
Well, let's get back to Miss Thelma one more time. What would you say to all of the boys and girls that are in Grand Prairie, Texas, that have had the benefit of the wonderful life of David woven into theirs, either by his teaching or by his caring or otherwise? Would you like to say something to all of those boys and girls?
I would like to challenge them to emulate the life story of David, first of all, by developing, if they do not already have, and if they have to enhance even further, a positive self-concept. The one thing we know about David is that he thought well of himself as well as of other people. And I think one reason he respected others and was willing and anxious to help others is that he got his motivation from within. And I would say to all the boys and girls out there growing up to begin by developing this positive self-concept, saying no to drugs or to gangs or anything else which would harm the wholesomeness of selfhood, and try to grow up with self-respect and the desire to help others to improve the quality of life wherever they are.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful philosophy of life for any of us. Well, we're almost to the end of our interview, but I wanted to mention in the 3 minutes that we have left, if y'all would allow me a little testimonial about David. Oh, yes, don't forget that.
If I may, during the final days of my husband's illness, we talked about what would happen to the contents of his home because they were not included in the will. Mm-hmm. And I took the liberty of selecting some very special items from David's home for people who were very close to him. And Ms. Jackson, this is one item. Something tangible when you look at it.
Thank you. I will love having this as a possession for as long as the good Lord lets me have this. And I wanted to tell you all personally how much he had meant to our lives. Mr. Jackson was on the school board, of course, and worked with David. And he was also chairman of the Urban Renewal for many years and worked with David in that sense. Also, David, during his final years, after he had already graduated from all of his other school jobs, became the president of the Post PTA. And he was so wonderful making barbecue. He was such a dapper dresser. He was such a wonderful young man that loved folks. And as a matter of fact, on his death, under the jobs that I have been assigned, either in the city or otherwise, I had 3 vacancies to fill. David was serving on the Navy Dallas Restoration Advisory Board, and when we lost him, we filled his vacancy with Sally Moore. And on the Quality of Life Foundation, I'm the president of the Quality of Life Foundation, and when we lost David, he served us for so many years on the Quality of Life Foundation. Well, we filled that vacancy with Sally Moore. And when he had to give up his seat on the Parks Board, we were privileged to nominate Sally Moore. So Sally is really carrying on in a sense, and we salute her on this Black History Month for carrying the torch on for David and all of the work that he loved and adored. And one last word from you, Prairie Pruitt, before we have 1 minute left.
I would just like to say on this Black History Month, as a black man, as a positive black man, I would challenge all black Americans to be more of a good American. It doesn't matter of our color or race. We are all Americans, and we need to step up our quality of life, elevate our thinking, and move forward. We don't need to look back, we need to look forward. That was one of the things that David Daniel exemplified in all of his life. He knew integration was inevitable. He never fought it, he welcomed it. He could have stayed in Dalworth and been a prima donna, but instead he encouraged and he was a peacemaker in that process because he believed that the future is always going to be glorious and great, and we should elevate our thinking along those same lines.
I want to thank both of y'all. Y'all have been precious to come today. Thank you so much for getting us off on the right track for 1997 at the beginning of our Black History Month. And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.